Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm back. I mean, I never left if you've been watching every week, but I'm back. I'm here to record a new episode of the Snedeker podcast, and I truly don't know what I want to talk about today. I'm sure it'll come to me by the end of this theme song, so I'm also not playing the theme song today, and I'll get into that in a second. Maybe that's a good thing to talk about, why I'm not playing. Like, if you're watching the video version, I'm not playing the theme song. You're just hearing a theme song that I played in a previous episode. Or maybe I'll overdub something. I don't know. We'll see. But let's start chatting maybe right now. Timing's all over, so we'll just start talking. So hopefully you're all doing well. It's the end of the summer. You know, school's kicking off for some people. I know a lot of people who just made the move back to cities to start studying again. In-person learning is returning in some fashion again. Hopefully it's not a trap like it was last year, where it was like, it's open, and then 2 weeks later they're like, nope. And it's like 2 weeks being like, it's annoying because, like, when you're a student, you know, you have like a week to decide if you like the classes you're taking. A week. In most first weeks of school are like, you know, it's you're still learning who's even in the class, and you're still like, who's the teacher, you know, who's doing what and where. You know, you're getting introduced to the class that first, like, here's the syllabus and introductory lesson, and or if it's like a carryover from a previous year, it's like, hi, my name is this. Last year you guys learned about this, and this year you'll learn about this, and here's kind of what we're going to look at for the rest of the semester. Some key dates you might want to mark down. Like, that's the first week, and most schools are like, all right, you have a week to decide if you like it, and if you don't like it, you'll get a full refund. Anything after that, you get less and less of the money you spent back, or the money, you know, you took out for a loan. More likely, you get less of that back. So, you know, that just gets compounded with the anxieties of going to school in the first place when you're in a pandemic. The fact that, like, you have a week to decide if you want to do the classes, if it's even going to fit in your schedule, or if they're even going to keep school open, if it's going to go back to online learning. Because some classes you'd be like, oh, I hate sitting in this class, and then you drop it, and then they go to online only, and all your friends are like, man, this class has got way easier. Like, it's so hard to make, or like, oh man, you dodged a bullet. I wish I would have dropped because this class got way harder. Like, I can't interface with the teacher like I need to, you know. I'm just at my house all the time. You know, some people like that. Some people like, you know, computer work, and some people like doing that. But I imagine school is a mixed bag for a lot of folks right now. Whether you're taking kids back to school and, you know, hoping that their teacher isn't so completely just stressed and drained already. You know, teachers have a lot of enthusiasm that goes into learning. Some of them don't. Let's be honest. Some of them should have left and they don't see a way out. Some of them should have retired sooner. You know, there's all, and not to say that every teacher's right for every person, but for the most, my experience, a lot of teachers have been, you know, they put a lot of time and energy into how they teach. So I can assume going into this, they have a mixture of excitement, anxiety. You know, they've been in meetings for the last 2 months about, like, all right, if this doesn't happen by this time, we're gonna have this go into effect, and then, you know, like, there's a lot of other adjustments other than just getting people to school and getting people in the classroom to learn. And the issue with, you know, a lot of kids rely on school meals, and schools, you know, might be shut down for education, but they still need to be open in some capacity for people to get food, or there needs to be some way to get the food that they would get, some service provided by the city, or, you know, independent contractors or something. I don't know, like a Meals on Wheels, but for like student meals. And, that's a whole other dynamic. Like going to school right now sounds crazy. It just sounds it sounds like you try to plan as best you can, and then you're even then it's not enough. It's kind of like, I think back to when I was in, elementary school and I would go back to school shopping. You get a million different little things to kind of signify the beginning of the year. Like, oh, cool, I get, new colored pencils for art class, or, a calculator for math, or, I got a pencil box. Oh man, like kids with you lift up the desk and inside's your own little swag, your own little vibe, your own, I don't know, swag seems outdated. I swear I'm cool. Tell your kids I'm on the TikTok. But, like you'd lift up your desk, with the, those metal desks. Everyone had them. A lot of people had them, especially if you went to a charter school. Like all charter schools looked and felt the same. But there'd be like your folders, your binders, all the things that would be like, I'm ready, I'm equipped for this year. And then you get to class and be like, oh man, they have like a way cooler pencil than I do. Or man, I thought I didn't need a protractor and I need a protractor. Like, then that's an easier remedy. You go back to the store and you get the pencil or get the protractor. But if you get there and it's like, oh, now you have to go online again. And I know it's an easier time the second time around or third time or however many times people have had to kind of reintroduce online learning to, in a teacher-student relationship. But it's still taxing, You think you're out of the weeds and then you're back in it with like, it's like, oh great, this again. I have to like set up my kid in a room uninterrupted for like hours on end, but also help them, but also I have to work, but also I have to, rest, and I need self-care so that I can have the energy to take care of this person who can't go out and work. Not that not that the answer is like, well, then send your 10-year-old daughter to go work in the mines. That's what I did when I was 10. I dropped out of, fourth grade so I could go work in the mines. And look how I turned out. Yeah, you look great. But I think of even not just, conventional school, our education system. I think of music school. Music school especially has just been like, I don't even know how you do it. I'm hearing things like, that rehearsals, something that music school packs in so much into one day. Like, for example, I went to Grand Valley State University for my undergrad. I did a classical undergrad. Within that, you take a minimum, I think it's a minimum of 15. Maybe it's changed. Maybe it was different. I always took 15 because that was like, you'd get done in 4 years. I think that was the minimum. You could take less, but you could, you'd have to make some of it up in the summer, like electives, or you'd have to add an extra semester or two. But 15 credits for most people are like, all right, I go to this class, I do the assigned reading and this worksheet or this online thing or whatever. And then, you might not have a lot of time, but all you've done is compartmentalize your schooling into this little bit. And you have, maybe your classes end at 3 or 4, or maybe you only have 2 classes and then you on one day. Music school, it's so much. But my 15 credits, I don't even know if I can add up how many, like in terms of what classes. But for example, just in general, as a pianist, you have to take certain courses that other instrumentalists don't, that are kind of baked into the piano pedagogy, piano lit encompassing thing, where you learn about the history of like piano focused education, everything from like seeing weird examples at the turn of the 20th century of like men writing books about, You know, like the least intimidating and least sexual and least offensive instrument a woman can play is the piano, because it involves upright posture and, you know, a good a very proper demeanor, and you can, put them in a nice dress or something, and they can entertain your guests that you invited over from, whoever, and y'all can drink and yell, and simultaneously that person on the piano has to have food ready. So, and these are all in books. These are all in books, just being like, yeah, the cello, like, don't let her play. If you let her play the cello, that's suggestive. Oh my goodness. So you learn about those things where you're like, wow, piano education's come far. And you learn about, like, different schools of thought. Music used to be thought of as kind of an athletic thing, where it just pure repetition and pure grit, like, that's gonna make you a better musician. But nowadays it's a combination of, like, how is your posture, how are you taking care of yourself holistically. You got to have certain dexterity and muscles, and there's a lot of repetitive motion injuries that can come from overusing your muscles. And for me especially, like, I always have to make sure that I am cognizant of how my hands are feeling, because it's very easy for me to, like, play too many gigs, and then in the span of those gigs I'm also on the computer, and then I'm unwinding with video games. That's a lot of repetitive motion. And I have, a lot of dexterity and strength in my hands, but, I need them to be at a certain, quality. And same with, muscles. I remember when I went to Bang in a Can, I was dealing with a case of tennis elbow, and that almost wrecked me. Luckily it was in my left arm. But, thinking of the elbow, like, the whole arm acts as like one big control mechanism, for different movements related to music. But anyway, back to what 15 credits means. 15 credits, for pianists, especially if if you start to dabble into other types of playing, like if you're not just doing accompanying, you're also playing in an ensemble. Like maybe you're playing in the symphonic winds, or you're playing in an orchestra. Or for me, I was playing in Grand Valley's new music ensemble. And occasionally I would be, I did some concerto pieces with the symphony, supporting, people who'd won the concerto competition. But accompanying is not just like, oh, we both play a piece together and everything's fine. It could be a jury where it's, for someone's grade. That involves a lot of work. Same with recitals, competitions, especially ones for scholarship money. I've helped people win scholarship money and win competitions and win, different things. Or at least, I've demonstrated things as my within that, like it's simultaneously marketing yourself, because like if you slay an accompaniment, especially a difficult one, all of those judges are gonna be like, oh, I'm taking down this guy's name, like he just killed it, like that's a hard piece. So accompanying in itself could be, and for some it's literally a whole career. Like some people, they just want to be accompanists. They want to learn a bunch of different reps of a bunch of different instruments, or a few different instruments, or maybe they want to focus on voice, or maybe they want to just do string rep. They want to specialize. For me, I was doing a lot of saxophones when I was at Grand Valley. So think about that, like accompanying, detailed, working with other people. You have to schedule in other time. You're looking for nooks and crannies in your schedule. Like, do I have an hour? Yeah, I have an hour on Tuesday. I could just grab a smoothie and meet you in the practice room, and that'll be my lunch. Like, how many times have I done that where I'm just like, yeah, I got time. I just want to sleep. I just want to eat. I don't want to eat food. Why did I need food? I just got music. And that was one credit. That was one credit. One. That wasn't 5. That wasn't like, a good chunk and like, oh, you got plenty of time. Nope. 1 credit. My lessons, 1 credit. On paper, you're meeting for an hour, or, if you're a different type of major, sometimes it's just half-hour lessons a week. And, that to someone who doesn't understand what a lesson is for most musicians, they go, oh, that's only an hour. It's like one class a week. What are you complaining away? Complain. It's like, no, it's 1 hour a week, but I'm spending multiple hours every other day and that day to practice, work on the song, calm my nerves and fears, and, thinking that every time I'm going to go into a lesson unprepared, even in the slightest, I'm going to get chewed out, I'm going to get yelled at, I'm going to, and not that anybody I had really as an instructor got to that point. Like sometimes it'd be like, okay, you need to get back on the wagon. Wow, it's been 2 lessons where you just haven't made any progress. And it's like, yeah, you're right. I'm letting my schedule get away from me and I'm not making the time I need to adjust. Those can be helpful as much as it could also be like, I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. 1 credit. So imagine if you had, it's like if you were working your job and then 1 hour every week, your boss is just going to be like, all right, I'm going to need you. Hey, you've been on burgers this week. Make me every sandwich. Like, just make me every sandwich. You've been, this is your assigned thing. You're assigned to make me a sandwich. And that's just mechanical. That's a recipe. Lessons help shape artistry in a way because, well, they do shape artistry in a way because sometimes someone gets so afraid of like the backlash they get if they don't meet the expectations of their professor that they start to accommodate someone else's tastes to fit their own. Everyone fawns over Glenn Gould playing Bach because it was so different, and then anyone who plays Bach different is like, "You're not Glenn Gould." Like, no, I'm not. And Bach's dead. Can we just try to interpret songs? Like, there are plenty of traditionalists. There are people who are there's some people who won't even play Bach on a piano. They're like, that was not around during his time, and it's not authentic to the. Just like, would you calm down? Or that was not around during the time he wrote that fugue. It's like, calm down. He's dead. Does he care? Is Bach's estate going to come police everything? Does Bach have an estate? He's probably his house is probably a museum, like Beethoven's. But so okay, we're at 2 credits of 15. So I'll try and breeze through it a little bit. But then you've got your 3 credit classes are like music history, where you're doing score study. You're listening to long excerpts of pieces, and you're making notes of harmonic progressions, of, phrasing, dynamics. You're analyzing a piece. You're understanding a concept and hearing it in real time and having to make notes about it. Or theory. You're learning how to use music notation software. And some people might not be able to, like they might not have a laptop that has the specs to comfortably run those types of things. So you're constantly having to make extra time to go to a lab during lab hours so that you can use a computer that you just used for class to finish your theory project. So that takes extra time because, okay, you're either staying longer at the building or you're having to make a trip back to your dorm, back to your house, back up. Like, it's a lot of extra time. There's different ensembles. Ensembles are typically like 1 credit, learning an additional chunk of rep for concerts, competitions. For the new music ensemble, it was learning rep that involved, extended techniques on my instrument, something that I wasn't learning in conventional playing, which extended techniques, think of, I think the most relatable thing I could reference would be like, the piano guys who, you might know from weddings everywhere. Everyone hears a piano and cello arrangement of something and they're like, is that the piano guys version? No, it's just these 2 instruments. The piano guys, they have their own thing. Go listen to that. But they do, they do those pieces where like they're using the body of the piano as a percussion instrument. They're using the strings and hitting them with a certain effect. They're, muting the strings. They're preparing the strings so that you're, each string, kind of like a guitar, you can have harmonics on a guitar. You can do that with piano strings. It's, the longer string means you can map out the overtones a little bit easier. Go look up the overtone series if you need an idea of what that means. It's if you're interested, but the you know there are times I'd have to play with different types of objects in the piano, whether it's prepared or hitting the strings with something, or a combination of conventional playing and like in and out of the piano techniques, or with technology, being able to having to adjust your playing to the processes of a backing track, or an effect that's created. All useful things, but 1 credit, 2 rehearsals a week, and traveling. There's festivals, schools, the national parks tour, competition, the composer competition, where the people would enter with a piece they wrote based on music that was written in the art gallery that's inside the music building at Grand Valley. Pop-up concerts, school visits. Like, you're basically working. You have a job. Like, this is what contemporary chamber ensembles would do outside of school. They have a variety of different places they play and instruct and demonstrate new techniques, or works from living composers, music that's often like there's not a lot of references to it. It's not like classical music in general, where there's like, oh, you got a huge body of work. Again, 1 credit, 2 rehearsals a week. All right. What else? You're probably taking, ear training classes. You're taking, you're having rehearsals that aren't even credits. You're having rehearsals all the time with, like I mentioned, with accompanying, but also with, you take extra work on the side because you want to make money. Like, the accompanying class is free for a student up to a certain amount per student. So I feel like it's 1-to-1. Like, a student is guaranteed free accompanying work for something. It's probably because there's more instrumentalists that aren't pianists than that are pianists. It was probably like 3 students to 1 pianist or something crazy. I don't remember. Yeah, so you think about all these things that make up a 15 credit course. That's, to plan for that for music school during a pandemic is bananas. Like, the recommended, like, hey, for every hour someone's in a room, you need a half hour to kind of help clear out and circulate the room. So rehearsals now have this buffer where if you were normally given a 2-hour time slot to do rehearsals, or an hour time slot, you need 90 minutes or 3 hours, to have that as a buffer. And you might need to just, like, instead of 2 1-hour rehearsals a week, you have 1 2-hour rehearsal a week with a half hour of space. But that's not, oh, well, then it's only a 90-minute rehearsal. No, that's 2 hours separated by a half hour. Like, that's a lot of extra time. And then, like, some of your classes are in person. It's harder. You can't really rehearse via Zoom, even with, technology like Parsec, that makes virtual conferencing virtually lagless, especially for streamers and video game people who need that kind of the input latency reduction. Like, that's not there are some spaces that I haven't really checked too deep into that claim to have like you can jam with your band anywhere that there's at least these internet specs. And it's like, okay, but can we though? Like, usually remote musicians have to record separately and then piece it all together. And usually, like, okay, there's a click, like, hey, we're all playing this to 120. Hey, we're all playing this to this, this arrangement. And then it's easier to piece together. But yeah, jamming is a strange time. I just realized quick side tangent. I never explained why, at the top of the hour, I was like, top of the podcast, I was like, oh, I'll explain why I'm not playing the theme. I forgot all my stuff I forgot, my laptop and my iPad, so there was no backup. So what I'm literally doing, I have this going into my Behringer XR18, and then I'm taking the headphone out from the Behringer RX18 and sending it into my Roland Edirol. Edirol. It looks like it could be Adderall. It's like a Zoom recorder, but it's Roland. So that's the only reason I don't have my MIDI keys set up. So long story short and boring, but back to music school. Performances. How do you do concerts? A gathering of people to see the results of months of work, especially the people who would sign off on like, hey, you're doing good, or hey, you passed your jury, hey, you passed your recital. How does that look? I've seen a lot more pre-recorded recitals, which on the one hand gives you a lot more time to prep and put your best foot forward. On the other hand, it only prepares you for a different side of things. It prepares you for you don't have that like performing under pressure, because you have a lot of opportunities to make mistakes and even fix your mistakes. That's the thing too. If you use the opportunity to learn engineering, you can like just be like, yeah, I played that line sweet, and you cover up a bad note. So that whole culture around juries is changing, or has been, not fully gone, probably. I'm sure some schools have it worked out where it's still in person in some capacity, but yeah, it's, now it's like, oh, classes over a certain cap, they can't be done in person. So, all right, lecture halls, having requirements to go see a concert. A lot of audiences that are in the music building are often there because other classes that are electives, that regular major students take, they they have requirements to go see a class. Like, hey, you got to go see 2 concerts and write about it for this jazz history class or something. So where do all those people have to tune into a stream? Like, what do they have to do? Like, is there even that little thing? Is there like a workaround? I guess go watch, pick 2 jazz concerts on YouTube. And then, all the little quality of life things like practice rooms. Like, how do you negotiate practice rooms? What does that look like? Hundreds of people just clustered in a, in various rooms trying to run, solo pieces, duo pieces, trio pieces, different size groups. The people who are in the audio engineering parts, like they have to spend hours in a studio. Like, they might be able to do something because it's usually only a couple people in the space. Or, like, oh, there's a separation of like, hey, just don't come into the control room. If I want to come to you, I'll come to you, but just hang out in the live room. And then there's that barrier to kind of mitigate some worries. So, I guess this turned into talking about back to school. So, be flexible, understand that it's still a work in progress. We're still in it. There's, the different strain. There are going to be people who are going to call out. There are going to be subs. There are going to be all these sorts of problems. And the only way we can fix it is coming together as a community. So that's an important distinction. And, I guess we can wrap up here. I said my piece is about school. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, you might enjoy my other podcast, Mitten Backstage. Dr. Snedeker podcast is got some episodes in the back. You can listen to more of those. Life is a Piano is kind of a companion podcast to Mitten Backstage. It doesn't come out as frequently, but it focuses on talking with pianists. So I talk to all sorts of pianists on that podcast. Mitten Backstage, it's talking with Michigan music industry people, whether they came up through the music education, whether they've lived and gigged in Michigan their whole life, whether they're in, the symphony or in the, in a rock band, like just talking with people in the Michigan music industry about various topics. You can, hit my Patreon, patreon.com/Dr. Snedeker. Support me there if you, want to toss a couple bucks and get some goodies. And then Dr. Snedeker or DrSnedeker.com for everything else. You can see a bunch of updates happening on my birthday, which when this podcast comes out, it'll be this Friday. So tune in then. I'm gonna, take some time on a brief stream to kind of show what's up and all those good things. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of Dr. Snedeker Podcast.